The station hung in the void like a broken promise, its metal skin scarred by decades of use and neglect. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of the trading vessel Mercury's Dawn, watching the slow rotation of the orbital platform against the star field beyond. Something about this place made her uneasy, though she couldn't quite put her finger on why. "Approach vector confirmed," her pilot Marcus said from his station. "They're giving us Dock 12, port side." Sarah nodded, her eyes still on the station. It was a neutral trading post, one of hundreds scattered across this sector of space. The Galactic Commerce Coalition maintained it as a place where different species could meet, trade, and conduct business without the complications of territorial disputes. In theory, it was supposed to be a safe haven. In practice, it was often a breeding ground for the kind of gray area dealings that made her instincts prickle. "Keep the engines warm," she told Marcus. "I want to be able to leave in a hurry if we need to." "Expecting trouble, Captain?" "Always expecting trouble. That's how we've stayed alive this long." The docking procedure went smoothly enough. Sarah had brought only 2 crew members with her for this supply run: Marcus, who could pilot anything with thrusters, and Elena, their engineer, who could fix almost anything that broke. It was a small crew, but humans had learned quickly that in galactic society, being underestimated was often an advantage. The station's interior was a maze of corridors and chambers, each section designed to accommodate different species' environmental needs. Sarah and her crew moved through the common areas where the atmosphere was set to a universal standard that most oxygen-breathing species could tolerate. The lighting was dim by human standards, and the air had a metallic tang that reminded Sarah of old copper pipes. They were halfway to the supply depot when Sarah heard it. A sound that didn't belong, a whimpering that cut through the usual station noise of ventilation systems and distant conversations. She stopped, holding up a hand to signal her crew. "You hear that?" she asked quietly. Elena tilted her head. "Sounds like something's hurt." The sound came again, clearer this time. It was coming from a side corridor, one of the maintenance access ways that most traders ignored. Sarah felt that familiar tug, the one that had gotten her into trouble more times than she could count. The one that said someone needed help. "We should check it out," she said. Marcus frowned. "Captain, we're already behind schedule. Whatever it is, station security can handle it." "Since when has station security handled anything?" Elena countered. "Come on, it won't take long." Sarah was already moving toward the sound. The maintenance corridor was narrow and poorly lit, the kind of place where things got abandoned and forgotten. The whimpering grew louder as they advanced, and then they saw it. Huddled against the wall was a creature unlike anything Sarah had seen before. It was roughly the size of a large dog, with 6 limbs and a body covered in what looked like soft, iridescent scales that shifted colors in the dim light. Its head was elongated, with large eyes that reflected the light like mirrors. One of its limbs was clearly injured, twisted at an unnatural angle, but what caught Sarah's attention was the collar around its neck. It was a technological device, blinking with various lights and displays. This was someone's companion, someone's pet, or possibly their work partner. And it had been left here, alone and hurt. "Poor thing," Elena whispered, kneeling down slowly. "Easy there, we're not going to hurt you." The creature shrank back, but its whimpering quieted slightly. Its eyes were intelligent, watching them with a mix of fear and something that looked like desperate hope. "That's a Velisarian bond companion," Marcus said, his voice tight. "Those things cost more credits than our entire ship. Someone spent serious money on that creature." Sarah examined the collar more closely without touching it. The display showed various biometric readings, and she could see that several of them were flashing red. The creature was in bad shape. "Where's its owner?" Elena asked. That was the question that made Sarah's blood run cold. Bond companions didn't just wander off, they were genetically engineered to be loyal to their bonded partner, programmed from birth to stay close. For one to be here, alone and injured, meant something had gone very wrong. Sarah activated her comm unit and switched to the station's public frequency. "This is Captain Chen of the Mercury's Dawn. I'm in Maintenance Corridor 7 Beta. There's an injured Bond companion here. Can someone direct me to its owner?" Static answered her for a moment, then a bored station operator's voice crackled through. "Maintenance Corridor 7 Beta? That's marked for cleaning. Whatever's in there is scheduled for disposal." Disposal? Sarah felt anger flare in her chest. "This is a living being with an owner." "Previous owner," the operator corrected. "The Velisarian merchant who owned that unit died 3 cycles ago. The companion was listed as property to be liquidated, but no one wanted to pay the veterinary costs for its injuries. It's been scheduled for termination." Elena made a small sound of distress. Marcus just shook his head, his expression grim. "Who made that decision?" Sarah demanded. "The station administrator, in accordance with Galactic Commerce Coalition regulations. Unclaimed property with maintenance costs exceeding potential value can be disposed of at administrative discretion. If you're interested in claiming it, you'll need to fill out forms at the administration office and pay the outstanding medical costs plus storage fees." Sarah looked down at the creature. Its eyes were still fixed on her, and she could see it trembling, not from cold, but from fear and pain and the terrible understanding that it had been abandoned by everyone except the 3 humans now standing in this forgotten corridor. "How much?" she asked. "Captain," Marcus started, but she waved him off. "How much for the medical costs and fees?" The operator paused, probably checking records. 7,000 credits, plus the medical treatment costs which haven't been assessed yet. Could be anywhere from 3 to 10,000 more depending on what the injury requires. It was a fortune for a small trading crew like theirs. It was probably half their profit from this entire run. But Sarah had already made her decision. "I'll be at the administration office within the hour," she said. "Don't touch that companion." She cut the connection before the operator could respond. Marcus was staring at her like she'd lost her mind. "Captain, we can't afford that. We need those credits for ship repairs for supplies. That's not a human problem to solve." "It is now," Sarah said firmly. She knelt down next to Elena, extending her hand slowly toward the creature. "Hey there. I know you're scared. I know everyone else gave up on you. But we're humans, and we're apparently too stupid to know when to walk away from someone who needs help." The companion watched her hand and slowly, painfully, stretched its head forward to touch her fingers with its snout. The scales were warm and surprisingly soft. Up close, Sarah could see that the creature's eyes were filled with a deep, intelligent sadness. "Elena, can you carry it?" Sarah asked. "I can try. It's going to hurt it, though." Better a little pain now than whatever they had planned. Sarah stood up and activated her comm again, this time on their private crew channel. "Mercury to Dawn. This is Chen. We're going to be delayed. Prepare the medical bay for a non-human patient." Their ship's AI responded immediately. "Captain, our medical bay is configured for human treatment only." "Then reconfigure it. We're bringing aboard a Velisarian bond companion and it needs help." "Acknowledged. Medical databases downloading now." Elena carefully scooped up the creature. It made a sound of pain but didn't struggle, as if it understood they were trying to help. Marcus just sighed and took point, leading them back through the corridors toward the administration office. The administrator was a Quillarian, a species known for their obsessive attention to regulations and their complete lack of empathy. Its 3 eye stalks swiveled to examine Sarah as she entered the office, the companion now wrapped in Elena's jacket and held carefully in the engineer's arms. "You are claiming the abandoned property?" the administrator asked in its clicking voice. "I'm claiming a living being that was left to die," Sarah corrected. And I want to know exactly what happened to its previous owner. The administrator's eye stalks twitched in what might have been annoyance. The Velisarian merchant Keltha was killed in a territorial dispute with Kreelan traders. According to witness statements, the bond companion attempted to defend its owner and was injured in the process. When Keltha's family was contacted about retrieving the property, they declined, stating the companion was too damaged to be worth the cost of repair. They abandoned it because it got hurt protecting its owner? Elena's voice was sharp with disbelief. The companion was property that would require extensive resources to repair for uncertain return value. The family's decision was economically sound. Sarah felt her hands clenching into fists. And the station just accepted that? Just decided to kill it? The station follows coalition regulations. Unclaimed property with negative value is disposed of according to standard procedures. This is normal practice. Normal practice, Sarah repeated. She looked at Marcus, saw her own disgust reflected in his face. Let me ask you something. In all the species on this station, in all the members of the Galactic Commerce Coalition, how many would have stopped to help this creature? The administrator's eye stalks wavered. That is an irrelevant question. Humor me. Based on statistical data and cultural studies, approximately 0.3% of station traffic would have intervened. Most species do not share human attachment to non-kin organisms. The emotional investment required to preserve damaged property is considered inefficient by most galactic standards. Most galactic standards, Marcus muttered, but not human standards. Humans are known to be anomalous in many behaviors, the administrator agreed. Your species forms emotional bonds with organisms across species boundaries, invests resources in creatures that provide no economic benefit, and frequently acts against your own interests in favor of abstract concepts like compassion. It is one of the reasons humans are considered unpredictable in galactic commerce. Sarah pulled out her credit chip and placed it on the desk. Fine. We're unpredictable. Transfer 7,000 credits from this account to cover the fees. I'll pay the medical costs once treatment is complete. The administrator processed the transaction with mechanical efficiency. Within minutes, Sarah had a certificate of ownership and the bond companion's medical records. The records were worse than she'd expected. Multiple fractures, internal injuries, signs of infection that had gone untreated for days. You will need to take it to the station's veterinary center for treatment, the administrator informed her. Standard procedure. No, Elena said firmly. We're taking it back to our ship. I don't trust anyone here to actually care whether it lives or dies. Your medical facilities are insufficient for this species' needs. Then we'll make them sufficient, Sarah said. We're humans. We're apparently very good at doing things we're not supposed to be able to do. They made their way back to the Mercury's dawn, drawing stares from other traders and station personnel. A human crew carrying an injured Velisarian companion wasn't something you saw every day. Sarah caught snippets of conversation as they passed, translations of various species' languages provided by her universal translator. Humans and their pets, one Grellian merchant said with what sounded like contempt. Wasting resources on defective property, a Xerxian trader agreed. But there were other reactions, too. A young Quilarian technician watched them pass with something like curiosity in its eye movements. An elderly Talarian merchant made a gesture that Sarah's translator identified as a sign of respect. Back on the ship, they transformed the medical bay into an emergency veterinary center. The Dawn's AI had pulled every piece of information available on Velisarian physiology and was walking Elena through the basics of treatment. Sarah watched as her engineer, who had joined their crew to fix engines and patch hull breaches, carefully cleaned wounds and set broken limbs with a gentleness that surprised even Marcus. The bone structure is different from anything I've worked with, Elena muttered as she worked, but the principles are the same. Support the injury, prevent infection, give the body time to heal. The companion remained still throughout the treatment, its large eyes fixed on Elena's face. Sarah could swear she saw understanding there, gratitude even. When Elena finished and the creature was settled on a padded surface with various monitoring devices attached, it made a soft sound that the translator couldn't quite interpret, but that somehow conveyed relief. "It's going to take time," Elena said, washing her hands. "Weeks, maybe months for full recovery, and that's if we can keep up with the treatments and medication." "We'll manage," Sarah said. She found herself sitting next to the companion, running her hand gently over its scales. The creature's eyes were half closed now, finally relaxing as the pain medication took effect. Marcus leaned against the doorway. "Captain, I have to ask, why? Why spend credits we don't have, time we can't spare, on a creature from a species we barely understand? What makes this worth it?" Sarah thought about that question. She thought about all the times humans had been told they were too emotional, too irrational, too willing to help those who couldn't help themselves. She thought about every story she'd heard of humans adopting alien creatures, protecting alien refugees, fighting for alien rights when no one else would. "Because everyone else walked away," she said finally. "Everyone else decided this life wasn't worth saving. Every other species in the galaxy looked at this companion, did the math, and concluded it was more efficient to just let it die. And maybe they're right, by their standards. Maybe we are wasting resources and time on something that doesn't make economic sense." She looked up at Marcus, then at Elena. "But we're humans, and one thing humans are really good at is caring about things even when it doesn't make sense. Especially when it doesn't make sense. This companion needed help. Everyone else abandoned it, so we step in. That's what we do." The companion made another soft sound, and this time Sarah felt a gentle pressure against her hand. One of its uninjured limbs had moved to rest against her palm, and in that simple gesture, Sarah felt something profound. A connection across species lines. A bond forming between human and alien that defied all the economic calculations and logical assessments that other species relied on. "Besides," Elena added with a slight smile, "we're going to need a ship's mascot. Every good trading vessel needs one." "A mascot that costs 10,000 credits and eats who knows what," Marcus said, but Sarah could hear the softness in his voice. He was already won over. Had been from the moment they'd found the creature in that corridor. Sarah settled in for the long night of monitoring ahead. Outside the ship, the station continued its business, traders coming and going, deals being made and broken. But inside the Mercury's dawn, 3 humans and 1 Velisarian companion began an unlikely journey together. A journey that would prove what everyone else had overlooked, that sometimes the most valuable things in the universe can't be measured in credits or calculated by equations. They could only be measured in the simple act of refusing to abandon someone in need, no matter what species they were or how little sense it made to save them. 3 weeks had passed since they'd left the station with their unexpected passenger. Sarah had named the companion Hope, because it seemed appropriate given the circumstances. The Velisarian was recovering faster than Elena had predicted, though the engineer still insisted on daily checkups and careful monitoring of the healing fractures. Hope had become part of their crew in ways Sarah hadn't anticipated. The companion seemed to understand that the humans had saved its life, and that understanding manifested in a fierce loyalty that surprised even Marcus. Hope followed Sarah everywhere when it was strong enough to walk, and when it had to rest, its large eyes tracked her movements around the ship with unwavering attention. "I've been researching Velisarian bond companions," Elena said one morning over breakfast. She pulled up a display showing various articles and studies. "They're not just pets. They're genetically engineered to form deep psychological connections with their bonded partners. When that bond is strong enough, they can sense emotional states, anticipate needs, even develop problem-solving abilities that rival some sapient species. "So Hope knew Keltha was in danger?" Sarah said quietly. "That's why it tried to defend him. And why being abandoned hit it so hard. These companions don't just lose an owner when their bonded partner dies. They lose their entire purpose, their reason for existing. The psychological trauma is comparable to what humans experience with severe loss." Marcus looked uncomfortable. "So by taking it in, we're what? Replacing its previous owner?" "No," Elena said firmly. "We're giving it a new purpose, a new pack, if you want to think of it that way. Hope isn't bonding to just Sarah. It's bonding to all of us, to the ship itself. I've noticed it responding to each of us differently, learning our routines and patterns." As if to prove the point, Hope limped into the galley, its movements still careful but much steadier than they'd been a week ago. The companion went straight to Marcus and gently bumped its head against his leg. A gesture they'd learned meant it wanted attention. Yeah, Marcus grumbled, but Sarah saw him reach down to scratch Hope behind what passed for ears. "You're lucky you're starting to earn your keep." It was true. Hope had proven surprisingly useful in unexpected ways. The companion's 6 limbs and flexible spine allowed it to access maintenance areas that were difficult for humans. When a coolant leak had developed in a cramped section of the engine room, Hope had squeezed into the space and held tools for Elena, learning quickly which tool she needed next based on her hand gestures. More importantly, Hope seemed to have an instinctive understanding of the ship's systems. Elena theorized it was because Velisarian companions were bred to work in various environments, including spacecraft. Whatever the reason, Hope could detect problems with air circulation or power distribution before the ship's sensors registered them, alerting the crew with specific sounds that they were slowly learning to interpret. Their peaceful routine was interrupted when they received a distress call. Sarah was on the bridge, running through navigation calculations for their next trading stop when the signal came through. It was automatic, the kind broadcast by ship emergency systems when things went very wrong. "This is the transport vessel Stellar Fortune. We've suffered catastrophic engine failure and life support is failing. Current position is Sector 792. Coordinates attached. Any ships in range, please respond. We have 43 passengers and crew. We have maybe 6 hours of breathable air left." Sarah checked their position. They were the closest ship by a significant margin. The next nearest vessel that might respond was at least 9 hours away. "Marcus, plot an intercept course, best speed." "Captain, that's going to drain our fuel reserves. We won't have enough to make our scheduled runs after this." "Then we'll find more fuel. Those people need help now." It was the kind of decision that Sarah knew other species would question. Humans had a reputation across the galaxy for this exact behavior, dropping everything to respond to distress calls, putting themselves at risk for strangers, spending resources they couldn't afford on rescue operations that offered no profit. Hope, sensing the tension on the bridge, moved to sit beside Sarah's chair. The companion made a low, rumbling sound that Sarah had learned meant concern or alertness. "I know, Hope. We're going to help them." The journey to the Stellar Fortune took 3 hours of hard burning. When they arrived, Sarah's heart sank. The transport was in worse shape than she'd imagined. It was a Thurelian vessel, designed to carry passengers between trade stations in relative comfort. Now it hung dead in space, its engines dark and its hull showing signs of an explosion that had torn through the aft section. "Life signs?" Sarah asked. "Reading 41, Marcus reported. They've lost 2 already. Most of the survivors are gathered in the forward sections where the air is still good." "Elena, what's our capacity for evacuees?" "If we pack them in tight, maybe 20 at a time. We'll need to make at least 3 trips to get everyone." "We don't have time for 3 trips. Can we rig a life support extension to their ship?" Elena studied her displays, then shook her head. Their systems are too damaged. Any power we feed through would just leak out through the ruptures. We need to get them off that ship, Captain. Sarah made the calculations in her head. Fuel, time, the degrading air quality on the Stellar Fortune. There had to be a way to get everyone out in one trip. What if we use cargo netting? Marcus suggested. Rig it in the cargo bay. Have them cluster together. It won't be comfortable, but we could fit all of them. The cargo bay isn't pressurized for passengers, Elena pointed out. So we pressurize it, divert life support from other sections, put everything into keeping the cargo bay habitable for a few hours. It was risky and uncomfortable, but it was their best option. Sarah opened a channel to the Stellar Fortune. Stellar Fortune, this is Captain Chen of the Mercury's Dawn. We're going to evacuate your ship in one go. I need everyone who can move to gather at your main airlock. Bring emergency oxygen if you have it. This is going to be tight, but we'll get you out. The response came from a Thorellian captain whose voice was tight with stress and gratitude. Mercury's Dawn, we're ready. Thank you. Thank you for coming. The evacuation was controlled chaos. Humans weren't physically imposing by galactic standards, but Sarah and her crew worked with an efficiency that impressed even themselves. They herded 41 beings of various species into the cargo bay, helping the injured, calming the panicked, organizing the space so everyone had room to breathe. Hope was invaluable during the process. The companions seemed to understand that these people needed help, and it moved among them, making soothing sounds, allowing frightened children to touch its scales, using its multiple limbs to help steady beings who were struggling with the movement in low gravity. One Thorellian child, separated from its parents in the chaos, was crying in a corner of the bay. Hope found it, curled its body around the child protectively, and stayed there until Sarah could reunite the family. The child's parent, a tall Thorellian with deep blue skin, looked at Hope and then at Sarah with an expression of wonder. I heard humans kept companions, the Thorellian said, but I didn't believe they would be trained to help strangers. Hope isn't trained, Sarah replied. Hope just knows what the right thing to do is. Once everyone was aboard, Sarah pushed the Dawn's engines harder than she'd ever dared. The ship complained, alarms chiming to warn about stress levels and fuel consumption, but they made it to the nearest station, delivering all 41 survivors alive and relatively healthy. The station master, a pragmatic Grenellian, met them at the dock. Captain Chen, what you did today will be noted in the official records. These people owe you their lives. Just doing what anyone would do, Sarah said. No, the station master corrected gently. Doing what humans do. The other ship that received the distress call, a Kravenian cruiser, calculated that the rescue would consume too many resources for insufficient reward. They declined to respond. Sarah felt anger flare, but kept it contained. They left those people to die? They made a logical decision based on their available resources and the potential return on investment. By their cultural standards, it was the correct choice. By human standards, it was murder. Which is why, the station master continued, I have taken the liberty of contacting the families of the survivors. They have pooled resources to cover your fuel costs and provide compensation for your time. Additionally, the Thorellian Merchants Guild has awarded you a commendation and a trading license that will allow you priority docking at any guild station. Sarah hadn't expected payment. She'd responded to the distress call because not responding was unthinkable. But she also knew that the compensation would keep the Dawn flying and allow her to continue helping others who needed it. Over the next several weeks, word of the rescue spread through the trading networks. Sarah found her reputation changing. Other captains who had dismissed humans as naive or overly emotional started to show respect. Traders who had avoided dealing with human ships began seeking out the Mercury's Dawn specifically. But not everyone was pleased. The Dawn was docked at a major trading hub, when Sarah received a message requesting a meeting with representatives from 3 major galactic trading consortiums. She brought Marcus and Hope with her, leaving Elena to watch the ship. The representatives were impressive by any standard: a Kravanian admiral, a Quilarian economic coordinator, and a Talarian merchant prince. They sat across from Sarah in a private meeting chamber, their expressions ranging from curious to openly hostile. "Captain Chen," the Kravanian began, her voice like gravel grinding together. "Your recent actions have created complications in established trading protocols." "I rescued people who were going to die," Sarah said flatly. "How is that complicated?" "You set a precedent," the Calarian explained, its eye stalks focused on her intently. "Other species are now questioning why their ships declined to assist. Crews are demanding that their captains respond to distress calls even when it is economically unfavorable. You have introduced inefficiency into the system." "Inefficiency?" Sarah let the word hang in the air. "You mean compassion?" "Compassion is a luxury," the Kravanian said. "In galactic commerce, resources must be allocated rationally. Your species' tendency to prioritize emotional responses over logical resource management creates instability." Sarah felt Hope press against her leg, the companion sensing her rising anger. She took a breath and chose her words carefully. "Let me tell you what I think is actually happening here. For thousands of years, galactic commerce has run on cold calculations. Species live or die based on their economic value. Help is provided only when there's profit in it. And you've all gotten very comfortable with that system." She leaned forward. "But humans are new to this galactic community. We're bringing different values, different priorities. We save people even when it costs us. We form bonds with species you consider beneath notice. We refuse to let beings die just because the math says it's more efficient. And that terrifies you. Because if compassion becomes standard practice, your whole economic system has to change." The Talarian merchant prince spoke for the first time, its voice surprisingly melodious. "You understand the situation well, Captain. The question is what we do about it." "Are you threatening me?" "We are offering you a choice," the Krovanian said. "Cease these unprofitable rescue operations. Conduct yourself according to established galactic commerce protocols. In exchange, we will provide you with exclusive trading contracts worth more credits than you could earn in a lifetime of normal trading." "Or?" Sarah asked. "Or continue as you are, and find yourself isolated. No trading consortium will do business with you. No station will grant you docking priority. You will be marked as an economic disruptor and treated accordingly." Sarah looked at each of them, these representatives of vast trading empires. Then she looked down at Hope, who gazed back at her with those intelligent, trusting eyes. She thought about the 41 lives they'd saved, about the Velisarian companion everyone else had abandoned. "I'll take option 3, she said. "There is no option 3, the Quilarian stated. "Sure there is. I continue doing what I do, and you can all go figure out how to compete with a species that actually gives a damn about more than just profit margins." Sarah stood up. "Here's what's really going to happen. More human ships are coming into galactic space every year. More human traders, more human merchants, more human values. We're going to keep responding to distress calls. We're going to keep helping beings in need. We're going to keep forming bonds with species you've written off." She headed for the door, then paused and looked back. "And eventually, you're going to have to decide whether you want to adapt to us or get left behind by an economic system that finally has a conscience." The walk back to the dawn felt longer than it should have. Sarah half expected station security to stop her, or for some consequence to manifest immediately. But nothing happened. She reached the ship safely, with Hope trotting alongside her. Elena was waiting at the airlock. "How did it go?" "I think I just declared economic war on half the galaxy's trading consortiums," Sarah admitted. Marcus appeared from the corridor. So, Tuesday then? Despite everything, Sarah laughed. Yeah, just another Tuesday. That night, as Sarah lay in her quarters with Hope curled up at the foot of her bed, she received a message on her private channel. It was from the station master they'd met after the Stellar Fortune rescue. Captain Chen, word of your meeting with the consortiums has spread quickly. I thought you should know that there are others who support what you're doing. A coalition of smaller traders and independent merchants has been forming. They're calling themselves the Compassionate Commerce Collective. They want to know if you'll stand with them. Sarah read the message 3 times. A coalition of traders who valued lives over pure profit. It wasn't much, not against the power of the major consortiums, but it was a start. She looked at Hope, who had raised its head and was watching her with those mirror-bright eyes. The companion had been abandoned by everyone except 3 humans who refused to walk away. Now Sarah and her crew were being pushed to abandon their principles or face the consequences. "What do you think, Hope?" she asked softly. "Should we stand with them?" Hope made a sound, low and steady. It wasn't quite a purr, wasn't quite a rumble. It was Hope's sound of contentment, of belonging, of trust. The sound of a companion who knew it had found its pack. Sarah sent her reply to the station master. "Tell them we're in." 6 months after joining the Compassionate Commerce Collective, Sarah found herself commanding not just the Mercury's Dawn, but coordinating a loose network of 37 independent trading vessels. They weren't a formal organization by galactic standards, just a group of traders who decided that profit shouldn't be the only thing that mattered. Hope had become something of a symbol for the movement. Footage of the Velisarian companion helping during the Stellar Fortune rescue had spread across trading networks, and beings across multiple species had begun questioning why bond companions and other intelligent creatures were treated as mere property. Some called it the Hope effect, how one abandoned companion had sparked a larger conversation about value and worth in galactic society. The major consortiums had made good on their threats. Sarah's trading license had been revoked by 3 major trading authorities. Several stations had banned Dawn from docking, but for every door that closed, 2 more opened. Independent stations welcomed them. Smaller merchants sought them out. And most surprisingly, some crews from consortium ships had deserted to join the collective, bringing their expertise and resources with them. Sarah was reviewing supply manifests when the call came in. It was from an unknown source, encrypted heavily enough that it took the Dawn system several minutes to decode it. When the message finally played, Sarah found herself looking at a Quilarian face she recognized. The economic coordinator from that meeting 6 months ago. "Captain Chen. My name is Relquin. We met once before, though I doubt the meeting left pleasant memories. I am contacting you because I require assistance that only someone like you would be willing to provide. And before you dismiss this as a trap, please understand that I am sending this message at great personal and professional risk." Sarah motioned for Marcus and Elena to join her on the bridge. Hope, sensing the tension, moved to stand beside her chair. The recording continued. 3 days ago, my offspring was kidnapped by Kreelan separatists. They are demanding that the Quilarian Economic Council redirect trade routes to benefit their faction. The council has refused, citing standard protocol that prohibits negotiation with terrorist organizations. My offspring has been classified as an acceptable loss for the greater economic stability. Sarah saw emotion in the Quilarian's eye movements, something she'd rarely witnessed in that species. "I understand that humans do not abandon their young. I understand that you respond to those in need, even when others would not. I'm asking you to help me retrieve my offspring. I cannot offer payment that would justify the risk. I can only offer a parent's desperation and the hope that your species' reputation for irrational compassion is accurate." The message ended with coordinates and a deadline. 72 hours before the separatists would execute their hostage. "It's obviously a trap," Marcus said immediately. "They know our reputation. They know we'll respond. This is how they take us out." "Maybe," Sarah agreed. "But what if it isn't? What if there's really a child who needs help?" Elena pulled up information on the coordinates. "It's in disputed space, sector that's claimed by both the Krelin government and the separatist faction, heavily patrolled by both sides. Getting in and out would be extremely difficult." "Difficult or impossible?" "With our ship?" "Difficult. We'd need help, though. This isn't a job for one vessel." Sarah opened a channel to the Collective's network. Within an hour, she had 6 ships volunteering for the rescue operation. More wanted to join, but the mission required speed and stealth, not numbers. They gathered at a rendezvous point outside the disputed sector, the Mercury's Dawn, 3 human trading vessels, 2 Talarian merchant ships that had joined the Collective, and surprisingly, a Thorellian transport, the replacement for the Stellar Fortune, captained by one of the beings they'd rescued months ago. The Thorellian captain's face appeared on the view screen. "Captain Chen, when you saved us, I told myself I would find a way to repay that debt. I think this qualifies. Captain Tilrex, this is extremely dangerous. No one expects you to risk your ship and crew for this." "You risked yours for strangers," Tilrex replied. "This child is the offspring of someone who probably approved of leaving my ship and passengers to die. But that child is innocent of its parents' choices. Besides, humans have taught me something over these months. Sometimes the right thing to do is also the stupid thing to do." They planned the operation carefully. The Dawn would go in first with Hope, using the companion's enhanced senses to detect security systems and patrols. The other ships would hang back, ready to provide support or create diversions if needed. Sarah assembled her away team, herself, Marcus, Elena, and Hope. The companion had never been on a combat mission before, but Hope seemed to understand the seriousness of the situation. The Velisarian had recovered fully from its injuries and had grown stronger over the months, its scales now bright and healthy, its movements confident. "You don't have to come," Sarah told Hope before they departed. "This isn't what we saved you for." Hope made a sound that their translator approximated as determination, then moved to stand beside the airlock. The message was clear. The companion wasn't about to let its pack go into danger alone. They infiltrated the Separatist base, using Elena's technical skills to bypass security systems, while Hope used its superior senses to detect guards and patrols before they got close. The base was built into an asteroid, a maze of tunnels and chambers that would have been impossible to navigate without Hope's ability to track scents and sense vibrations through the rock. They found the Quilarian child in a detention cell deep in the complex. The young Quilarian was small by its species standards, its eye stalks drooping with fear and exhaustion. When it saw Hope, however, those eye stalks perked up with recognition. "Bond companion," the child said in its clicking language. "You are the famous Hope. I saw you on the information feeds." "We're here to take you home," Sarah said, using her translator. "Can you walk?" "I can run if you need me to," the child responded. Getting in had been difficult. Getting out with a hostage proved nearly impossible. Alarms began blaring before they'd made it halfway back to their entry point. Krelin separatists, heavily armed and angry, blocked their path at every turn. Hope proved its worth in ways Sarah never could have anticipated. The companion's 6 limbs and flexible body allowed it to move in ways that confused the separatists. It could scale walls, fit through narrow passages, and use its body to shield the Quilarian child from weapons fire. More than once, Hope's warning sounds alerted them to ambushes before they walked into them. They were pinned down in a junction chamber when the situation went from bad to worse. A squad of separatists had them surrounded and their ammunition was running low. Sarah found herself thinking this might be where their luck finally ran out. Then the wall exploded inward, and Captain Tilrex's voice boomed through the dust. "Captain Chen, I believe you called for transportation? The Thorellian had piloted his ship directly to the asteroid's surface, using its mass to punch through the outer walls. It was a maneuver that would probably destroy his ship's ability to make atmospheric entry ever again, but it gave them the opening they needed. They ran for the breach, Hope carrying the Quilarian child on its back, while Sarah and her crew provided covering fire. The other ships of the collective had moved in to engage the Separatist fleet, creating enough chaos to cover their escape. The ride back through disputed space was tense, with Separatist ships giving chase until they crossed into neutral territory. But they made it, delivering the Quilarian child safely to a rendezvous point where Rel Quinn was waiting. The economic coordinator's eye stalks trembled as the child ran into its arms. For a long moment, the Quilarian simply held its offspring, making sounds that Sarah's translator couldn't interpret but which clearly conveyed overwhelming relief and gratitude. When Rel Quinn finally looked at Sarah, its eye movements showed something that might have been shame. I was part of the group that tried to pressure you to abandon your principles. I calculated that compassion was inefficient, that emotional responses led to poor resource allocation. I was wrong. You weren't completely wrong, Sarah said gently. Compassion is inefficient. It costs more than cold logic would spend. But that's because some things are worth more than efficiency. The Council will want to know how this rescue was accomplished, Rel Quinn said. They will want to study your methods, incorporate them into security protocols. Tell them whatever you want, Sarah replied. But also tell them this. We didn't save your child because we wanted something in return, or because we calculated that the benefit outweighed the cost. We saved your child because nobody else was going to, and because letting innocents suffer when you can help is unthinkable to us. Over the following weeks, something unexpected happened. Rel Quinn began using its position in the Quilarian Economic Council to advocate for what it called compassionate commerce protocols. The coordinator argued that while pure economic efficiency had its place, completely ignoring the welfare of living beings created long-term instabilities that actually harmed commerce. It started small. Updated regulations protecting bond companions and working animals. Guidelines for responding to distress calls that balanced economic concerns with humanitarian obligations. Requirements for minimum welfare standards in how various species treated other living beings. The major consortiums resisted, of course. But the pressure wasn't just coming from humans anymore. Species across the galaxy had seen what the Compassionate Commerce Collective had accomplished. They'd seen one abandoned companion become a symbol of something larger. They'd seen traders choosing to help rather than profit, and they'd seen those traders succeed despite the odds. Sarah was negotiating a supply contract at a major trading hub when she encountered the Crovanian admiral again, the one who'd tried to intimidate her into abandoning her principles. The admiral studied Sarah for a long moment, then made a gesture that Sarah's translator identified as grudging respect. You have disrupted galactic commerce significantly, Captain Chen. We've made it more compassionate, Sarah corrected. The two are not mutually exclusive, I am learning. My fleet has begun implementing some of the collective's protocols. Not because we have become soft, but because we have calculated that species who feel their welfare matters are more stable trading partners. Also, several of my crews threatened mutiny if we did not change our policies regarding distress calls. The Hope effect? Sarah asked with a slight smile. Indeed, one abandoned companion has caused more disruption to established systems than a dozen trade wars. The Admiral paused. I am told that Hope is fully recovered from its injuries. Have you considered selling it? I would offer a substantial price. Sarah felt Hope press against her leg, and she reached down to run her hand over the companion's scales. Hope isn't for sale. Hope is family. Family. The Crovanian seemed to test the word. Humans apply this term very broadly. We do. Family isn't just who you're born to. It's who stands with you when everyone else walks away. It's who you refuse to abandon even when it would be easier. Hope taught us that lesson, or maybe we taught it to Hope. Either way, we learned it together. 3 years after finding an injured companion in a forgotten corridor, Sarah stood on the bridge of the Mercury's dawn and looked at the star charts. The Compassionate Commerce Collective now numbered over 300 ships from dozens of species. They'd established trade routes that prioritized welfare alongside profit. They'd created a network of stations where distress calls were always answered, and where living beings were valued beyond their economic utility. It wasn't a revolution, not really. Most of galactic commerce still operated on the old principles. The major consortiums still calculated profit over compassion more often than not. But the change had begun, sparked by 3 humans who refused to let one companion die alone. Hope had become more than just a companion to Sarah and her crew. The Velisarian had bonded with all of them, learning to anticipate their needs and moods, becoming an integral part of the ship's operations. But Hope had also become something symbolic, proof that beings written off by society could have immeasurable value if someone was willing to see it. Sarah received a message from the Velisarian homeworld. Hope's species had taken notice of what their abandoned companion had accomplished. They wanted to honor Hope, to recognize it as an example of their kind's best qualities. "What do you think?" Sarah asked Hope. "Want to be famous?" Hope made a sound that their time together had taught Sarah to interpret as contentment mixed with mild amusement. The companion didn't care about fame or recognition. Hope cared about the pack, about the ship, about helping those who needed it. "Yeah, that's what I thought. We'll send them a polite decline." Marcus appeared on the bridge with coffee and a datapad. "Captain, we've got another distress call. Small research vessel, engine failure, 3 days from the nearest station. They're asking if anyone can assist." Sarah felt Hope's attention shift to her, waiting to see what she would decide. But really, there was no decision to make. There never had been. "Set an intercept course, Marcus. Best speed." "Using up fuel for strangers again," Marcus said, but he was smiling as he input the coordinates. "That's what we do," Sarah replied. She looked around the bridge, at her crew, at Hope sitting alert and ready. "That's what humans do. We show up when others won't. We help when it doesn't make sense. We refuse to abandon those in need." As the Dawn's engines engaged and they began their journey toward another rescue, Sarah reflected on how much had changed since that day they'd found an injured companion in a forgotten corridor. She'd been told that compassion was inefficient, that emotional decisions led to poor outcomes, that humans needed to learn to think like the rest of the galaxy if they wanted to succeed in galactic commerce. But Sarah and her crew had proven something different. They'd proven that compassion could be a strength, that caring about more than just profit could open doors that cold calculation would never find. They'd proven that the willingness to help those in need created bonds stronger than any contract, loyalty deeper than any payment. Most importantly, they'd proven that one act of kindness, one refusal to abandon a helpless being, could ripple outward in ways no one could predict. All it took was someone willing to stop when everyone else walked by. Someone willing to help when the math said it wasn't worth it. Someone willing to see value where others saw only costs. Hope moved to sit beside Sarah's chair, and she rested her hand on the companion's head. 3 years ago, Hope had been dying alone in a maintenance corridor, abandoned by everyone who'd calculated that saving it wasn't economically justified. Now, Hope was healthy, happy, and part of a crew that had changed how parts of the galaxy thought about commerce and compassion. "You know what the best part is?" Elena said from her engineering station. "We did all of this because we're apparently too stupid to know when to walk away from someone who needs help." "Too stupid or too human," Marcus added. "I can never tell the difference." "Maybe they're the same thing," Sarah said. Maybe being human means being stupid enough to care even when you shouldn't, brave enough to help even when it's dangerous, and stubborn enough to keep trying even when everyone says it's pointless. She watched the stars streak past as they accelerated toward their next rescue. Somewhere out there, a small research vessel was waiting for help that might never come by the cold calculations that govern most of galactic society. But help was coming, because the Mercury's Dawn and its crew operated by different calculations, ones that measured value in lives saved rather than credits earned. Hope made a soft sound, and Sarah smiled. The companion knew what they were doing, understood that they were heading toward another situation where they would help beings who might never be able to repay them, and Hope approved, because in the years since being rescued, the Velasarian had learned what it truly meant to be part of a human pack. It meant showing up when others wouldn't. It meant caring when it cost too much. It meant refusing to abandon anyone, no matter how many others had already walked away. As they approached the distressed research vessel, Sarah opened a channel. "This is Captain Chen of the Mercury's Dawn. We received your distress call. Help is here. We're not going to let you drift alone." The relief in the researcher's voice was palpable. "Thank you. Thank you. We thought no one would come. The closest ship said it wasn't economically feasible to alter their route." "Well," Sarah said, glancing at Hope and then at her crew, "we're humans. We specialize in doing things that aren't economically feasible." They conducted the rescue smoothly, a routine operation now after dozens of similar calls. But as Sarah watched the grateful researchers board the Dawn, she saw in their faces the same expression Hope had worn that day in the corridor. The look of beings who had been abandoned by everyone else, who had lost hope, and who had just learned that some species in the galaxy still believed that every life mattered. That night, after the researchers had been delivered safely to their destination, Sarah sat in her quarters with Hope curled up beside her. She pulled up the recordings from that first day, watching 3 humans discover an injured companion that everyone else had written off. She saw herself making the decision to help, saw the moment she'd paid credits they couldn't afford for a life that had no economic value. At the time, it had seemed like a simple choice, maybe even an impulsive one. But that choice had cascaded into something larger than she'd ever imagined. 1 companion saved, 300 ships inspired, countless lives rescued, an entire movement built on the simple principle that walking away from someone in need was unacceptable. Hope shifted, resting its head on Sarah's leg, and she stroked the companion's scales gently. "You know what I think, Hope? I think we didn't save you that day. I think you saved us. You reminded us what it means to be human in a galaxy that had forgotten what compassion looks like." The companion's eyes reflected the stars visible through the viewport. Mirror-bright and infinite. In those eyes, Sarah saw understanding, gratitude, and something that might have been agreement. Tomorrow they would respond to another distress call. The day after that, another. They would keep showing up when others wouldn't, keep helping when it didn't make economic sense, keep proving that some calculations mattered more than profit and loss. Because that's what humans did. And thanks to 1 abandoned companion and 3 traitors too stubborn to walk away, that's what a growing number of beings across the galaxy were learning to do as well.